Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. Today we'll end up recapping the NFL's Week 1 action and go through our bets from last week, which some
Sad
of us
state of
did well,
affairs.
some of us did not.
Yeah,
And then
half of us did pretty well.
we'll yes, half of us did, yeah. We'll talk very, very briefly about the horrible Royals and their disaster of a season. And then we'll preview week 2 for the NFL towards the end of the show. Mike, the NFL had a pretty crazy week 1. What did you find is the most surprising story from the NFL week 1? Is it Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, all 0-1 to start the season? The NFC South actually has a winning record after week 1? Or just all of the Green Bay, New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers saga and how that has played out so far, because that's been
Yeah,
nuts. Which did you find
if I
most
had to pick
surprising of those three?
one of those three, I would say well, I think that Aaron Rodgers got hurt like on the fourth play or something like that. He
Yeah.
was like one of his first dropbacks. I think is the most surprising, and also I think that Green Bay did very well. I like going into the week. It's one of those things where the Chiefs did so badly in their game, but that kind of got lost in the shuffle with all the other teams playing later. So like you thought, well, it was going to be Kadarius Toney's many drops and his drop that turned into a pick six against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs lose by 1 point. And when they should have won that game by like 14 points going away easily, had they been like a normal team catching the ball, even without Kelsey, even without Jones, they should have won that game by 10 points at least.
At least a touchdown anyway.
Yeah. Well, if you add,
One touchdown plus the touchdown that they gave them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'd say like there were so many drops later, like they should have caught, and like it was just awful. But I guess it's not as bad as if you're a Jets fan, although they did get a win, which is I think also helpful long term for the Chiefs, because I don't think the Bills are going to be that bad either. And without the Jets being now probably being a real rival to the Bills, I think the AFC East is probably just a 2-team race with the Dolphins and Bills now. Even though the Jets won their game, but I think Zach Wilson is not going to continue. He wasn't very good at that. The Bills were just really awful. Allen had like 4 picks or something.
At least 3, yeah.
3, and then he was like running for like and like just getting hammered every time. Like he didn't like try to avoid getting hit, and you wonder, is he still injured somewhat? Is he just, I don't know. It's a weird, he's kind of been going downhill since Brian Dable left. And so maybe the Bills will be slightly worse this year. Like they've gotten slightly worse the last few years.
As a team, they looked similar to how they looked at the end of last season when Josh Allen was banged up enough, at least anyway, that elbow. But it seemed like he had like good arm strength. He just was taking a lot of hits, and especially some pretty nasty hits like towards the helmet too. Like even on plays that were incomplete, that he made a pass on, he was still taking hits. So it wasn't like the 0 sack performance that the Chiefs offensive line got for Mahomes, where he can get banged up a lot too. But they Allen took a lot of hits. I don't think he needed to.
Well,
especially in a game that already featured a quarterback injury. You'd think that be going out of their way to try to avoid contact. And
it was like, did Allen have a worse game than Joe Burrow? That's the question.
No.
Well, Joe Burrow, I don't think he threw any picks, did he?
No, but I think he only had like 86 yards.
82 yards passing.
82 on 30 something
14
attempts.
Of 31.
Yeah.
82 yards. That's not very good.
That's especially, like the day after or 2 days after signing the largest contract in the NFL. At least this it looks kind of bad, I guess,
Yeah.
I suppose, but
it's week one still, so we shouldn't get too worried. That's one of those things.
yeah.
I think we'll end up talking more about the Packers and the Aaron Rodgers stuff, but I wanted to give you these tidbits about week one in the recent NFL history. So in 2022 week one action, Chicago, the Bears defeated the 49ers. Chicago would finish 3-14. The 49ers would finish 13-4. Of course, that was one of the games with Trey Lance as quarterback, but
Yeah.
Still, the Bears beat the 49ers. Pittsburgh also beat the Bengals in opening week one last year at Cincinnati, 23-20. That was an interesting game. There were a lot of missed field goals by the Bengals and some big defensive plays by Pittsburgh, but the Bengals finished 12-4. They went to the AFC Championship game. San Francisco went to the NFC Championship game last year. So both the two of the four championship game appearers. I'm sure there's a better what's
Contestants,
I don't know. Contestants. Yeah, that's probably better.
I don't know. Members
their
as well? Yeah.
opening games. Pittsburgh did end up finishing 9-8, even though they were really bad early on. Washington defeated the Jaguars, although Washington finished 8-1 and the Jaguars only 9-8. But by the end of the year, you would think the Jaguars were one of the hottest teams, and they won a playoff game. They were in, they were pretty close to the Chiefs, even though they played the Chiefs mostly with an injured Mahomes. Fortunately, Mahomes did not rupture his Achilles tendon like Aaron Rodgers did, but it seemed kind of, a little similar. And also Tampa Bay beat Dallas 19-3. And Tampa Bay, of course, they won their division, but they had a losing record, and Dallas was 12-5 and had one of their best teams. And Dak Prescott got hurt in that game. And so that was week one of 2022. Week one of 2021 had a couple interesting results as well. Green Bay, I don't know if you remember this, with Aaron Rodgers, lost at New Orleans 38-3, and Green Bay ended up finishing 13-4 that year. And 2 years ago, I think they went to the NFC title game and lost to the Rams. And New Orleans, I don't think, made the playoffs. So Arizona won 38-13 at Tennessee, but Arizona was finished 11-6, but they lost they were 10-2 at one point. They finished 11-6 and lost their first playoff game, and then they've gone downhill since.
So that was not stopped sliding, right?
Yeah. And Tennessee was the number one seed overall in the playoffs on the AFC side. So 12-5 that year. So you can still lose those early games and be fine. Cincinnati, you might remember, lost their first two games last year at Dallas and home against Pittsburgh. So it's one of the things, with week one, it's crazy. Things don't always, it's not a normal week. And things happen. It took a weird series of events for the Chiefs to barely lose that game. And I thought that was weird that people were talking about how great Detroit played and stuff like that. They were the beneficiaries of historically bad wide receiver play, and they were given a free touchdown, and they didn't. You could say, well, they had the ball at the end, they could have scored, but they really, the maximum they could have scored would have been 21 points, and then against the Chiefs, that's not usually going to win at Kansas City. So,
the Chiefs, whose recent MO at least has been to not have very good defenses early in the year, and it gets progressively better as the season goes on. And the defense held what was very good offense last season to just just two touchdowns for the whole game, and
that was, of course, without Chris Jones on defense, and also without Travis Kelce on offense. So their two best players other than Mahomes were not.
Well, and Minihue was missing also, which is supposed to be another
probably their second best defensive lineman after
defensive line.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I think I don't know what it really tells us about either of those teams.
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs will be fine, but that was a real, and hopefully Kadarius Toney's psyche is okay, because and well, Sky Moore looked terrible too, and he just was just as bad. He didn't catch anything, and
but his performance flies under the radar because
Tony's
was so epically bad, at least.
Yeah, so the two touchdown two touchdown reception getters in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl both had a combined one reception for 1 yard, I believe, maybe 2 yards,
2 yards, something like
2
that.
yards. Yeah, something like that. And so that was
a touchdown the other way and a handful of drops.
Yes, and I think there were like 8 drops that the Chiefs had, and one of those drops was a drop right. It was a Tyreek Hill-esque drop into another player. Speaking of Tyreek Hill, he had a brilliant game. He had over 200 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns,
210, I think.
Yeah, Tua Tagovailoa threw for I think 466 yards, and that was a barn burner of a game. 36-34, a matchup between first round draft picks from 2020, and Tagovailoa and Tua came out on top. It was Tyreek Hill, 11 receptions, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. So that was, putting him on pace for more than about 3,500 yards this season.
Yes.
Do you think that he'll, if assuming Tua stays healthy, which is a big if, at least they have a Mike White as a backup quarterback who can at least make the offense hum a little bit, even if he throws a lot of picks, but which is probably better than better than Bridgewater, or better than Bridgewater was okay, but he also got hurt. Better than Skylar Thompson for sure. Do you think that Hill has a chance to go over 2,000 yards this year?
Well, he's well on pace for it. But,
yeah,
I mean, it seems to be that he can get dinged up a bit as the season goes on, because he does take some fairly heavy shots, because he's active in the play, so he's there all the time. But it's so dependent on Tua's health to get him the ball. So I would guess that probably not, but I also wouldn't be that surprised if he does at the same time. Is that what were you thinking about that?
I wouldn't be surprised if he did, but I think it hinges on Tua's health, and it's one of those things where when I thought that when Hill left Miami, I thought that maybe he was sacrificing a potential like Hall of Fame career by leaving the Chiefs. But I think he's getting bigger numbers as the number 1 guy in Miami. And I think Miami probably has a more innovative passing game than the Chiefs do right now. I think Mike McDaniel's turned out to be a great offensive coach. Probably better than, maybe as good or better than Kyle Shanahan, who he worked for. So like he's and I think the Chiefs offense looked kind of stale, especially their short yardage games when they had another stupid kind of Blake Bell sneak or thing that didn't work. Like, let's 3rd and 1. Why don't let's not let Mahomes do whatever. And like Mahomes, if he just have him drop back, and then if there's nothing there, he can get a yard. Like, it's like he could scramble for a yard anytime he wanted, and he can, they really should have converted on the 4th and 25 play. That was another drop, and
it was on the hands. That pass was right there.
And so, like, just let Mahomes be Mahomes if you're going to make him be Mahomes. Like, if you're going to like want him to be Superman, which is what the Chiefs' offense is kind of becoming, like it's putting him in like these awful positions, and like, let's run it on, on 2nd and 10, and then it's 3rd and 8, and let's make Mahomes convert, and he usually does. But
Yeah.
it's their offense. The game plan hasn't been very good, and I don't know if that's because of Matt Nagy, but I don't think it was much better under Bieniemy. Maybe it's just Andy Reid, not like he'll get those kind of dazzling plays every once in a while, like the what was it, corn dog that won the Super Bowl. But like in general, like the completions and that stuff seems a lot harder for the Chiefs than it does for a lot of these other teams. Like, because there's no way that Tua should be doing so much. I don't know, doing so as well as Mahomes, even though he has better receivers. But it seems like the game plan for him is really easy, I guess. And that's maybe that's the Shanahan thing. It's making the game plan for the quarterback easy. And it's like Purdy had another good game in Pittsburgh. Was that a surprising game to you that San Francisco blew out Pittsburgh the way they did in Pittsburgh?
I'm not terribly surprised by that. The thing that I thought was maybe most surprising from that game, at least when it was that Purdy actually still looks pretty healthy, because you hadn't really seen him much. He only played, I think, one series, I think, in the last preseason game.
Mm-hmm.
That's really not enough to tell like if he's sort of back to normal or not. But what is normal? He's only played a handful of games. I think that was his 6th game, something like that. So that's not really enough to know how well a quarterback is going to perform. And I don't know if you noticed, but yeah, he was wearing the captain's designation on his jersey too. So that's pretty impressive to go from Mr. Irrelevant to captain of the team.
Well, yeah, he's one of the captains.
1 year.
Right. It seems like, yeah, they made a big point this year of making Kyler Murray a captain for the Cardinals, which I think usually it's something like you say, well, why isn't your quarterback the case? But like like Kyler Murray, like nobody, like he just plays video games all the time, I think, and he's I don't know when he's coming back for the Cardinals, but the Cardinals look bad against Washington.
But they weren't out of it.
No, because Washington looked pretty bad too, because they don't have a quarterback.
They also don't have quarterbacks.
Well, Joshua Dobbs, who was the quarterback for Cardinals, he'd only been there like a week, so like maybe they could get better, but like I don't think they're going to be playing teams with. Well, it's the NFC, so maybe they're going to be playing some teams with bad quarterbacks. Who do the Cardinals play? They play the Giants. Speaking of teams that did really, really awful in week 1, that was so which New York team had a worse week?
Yeah,
or the Giants or the Jets?
You lose your quarterback for the season, or you get blown out 40-0 at home. Man, that is a tough question there. Like, which would you rather have? Yeah, I mean neither really, but
like some of those points that the Cowboys scored, like 3 of them were defensive touchdowns and things like that, or special teams return, like that's fluky. I still don't buy. Like, you can have a good defense, but if you are getting by on a lot of defensive scores and things like that, unless you're the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, it's something that doesn't really win in the modern NFL consistently.
Yeah.
Especially when you play teams with good offenses. And so the Cowboys did pretty well in defense until they played like Philadelphia last year or San Francisco or the good teams with good offenses. So I think.
But they have a good defense themselves. I mean, they did hold the Giants to 0 points.
Yeah, the Giants looked. I guess it was a rainy night.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't seem like that big the quarterbacks with given big contracts in the offseason. Did any of them win? Because Daniel Jones got a big contract, he lost. Justin Herbert got a big contract, although he played pretty well.
Yeah.
That was a high scoring game, 36 it wouldn't say, well, that's on Herbert. But and then of course the Joe Burrow atrocity.
Mm-hmm.
It was week 1 it was just crazy. If you're so in some ways I think week one, even though the Chiefs lost, it turned out really, really well for the Chiefs because Denver lost, the Chargers lost, the Bengals lost, the Bills lost. So really, the threats in the division and the threats, I think, to be the number one overall seed in the AFC all lost, and Aaron Rodgers is out for the season. So like that, week 4 matchup in New York, you got to feel pretty good about the Chiefs' chances now. Now, I don't see how Zach Wilson or Carson Wentz or who you think the Jets are going to bring somebody in to compete with Wilson? Or Tom Brady bringing him back?
They'll have to bring someone else in. But yeah, I don't know. I have no idea where they're going to go. Yeah. We've already heard some creative names, I guess, at least anyway, right?
Yeah. I think it's going to be Wentz, but I've heard one of our friends, esteemed Adam Mitchell, thought it might be Tom Brady. But speaking of the Mitchells, I also did you get the text that Travis Kelce apparently is dating possibly Taylor Swift? I had heard like the rumor he got rejected by Taylor Swift, but then now it seems like maybe they've been
since then apparently they have been hanging out. That's what was said. Yes.
Yeah. So now we have. You think that will? So that's what Travis has been doing the last week since he's been rehabilitating from his rehabbing from his injury. His bone. I guess they called it a bone bruise now rather than just a hyperextension.
Yeah. But now without damage to the ligaments, I guess, though, too. I said that I'd see that there was some fear that it was a very specific knee injury, which may have kept him out for the entire year, but it was not that.
That's good. Yeah, because this might be, I'd say Kelce, had he had like a significant injury, that could have affected his rest of his career. Like he might not even play. Like this is one thing. It's like with Rodgers. Do you think Rodgers is going to come back? Do you think he'll play for the Jets next year?
I don't think he'll want to go out on that. That's what I'd be surprised by. And he deferred so much of his salary to the remaining years of his deal. I can't imagine him just walking away from it. I think he may try to carry the injury designation out into another season if he has to, just to make sure he gets as much of the salary as he can anyway.
Yeah.
The team gets to write off a lot of it if they, can't carry him on the roster. But it'd be crazy to think that you would walk away from a contract of that size without trying to play it out.
I guess it's better for the Jets and better for Rodgers that he got hurt very early in the year, because you assume now that if he does come back and rehabs, he could be ready by week 1.
Ish, if not, maybe a couple weeks in at
it's like a year. It's like a year recovery usually.
Yeah.
Do
you remember he's very old?
I mean, it's Achilles tendon. Yeah, he's older, but he's also somebody like he's a quarterback, so he doesn't need to run around all the time. He's always been a mobile quarterback, but he's also a fantastic pocket passer. So maybe he'll just become a kind of Dan Marino like statue, just throwing it, just getting rid of the ball so quickly that you aren't going to get sacked a lot.
Like what Tom Brady did
towards
from a lot of his career, but especially at the towards the end of the career.
Yeah, that's what Peyton Manning did. That's what at the end especially as well. So so maybe I think I like you. I do think probably he'll come back. I think he would. That's a bad taste to be left, and
you don't want to end on that. I don't think. Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
I could see him walking away during a season if the situation was right. If it just felt like he was done, and he's like, "Oh, well, I just won this game. My leg hurts too much to play anymore. Maybe I'll."
Yeah, like the Jets are 3-10.
Yeah,
we won this last game, and I'm just or something like that. Maybe he would just say, "Oh, I want Wilson to try to." Come in and get some more reps or something like that, and I'll just retire. But Zach Wilson did say that if they brought another quarterback in, Wilson would make that guy's life a living hell. Quote. Do you think that Zach Wilson had perhaps a voodoo curse placed on Aaron Rodgers, and that was the reason that Rodgers got hurt?
I don't have evidence for the opposite argument, so it's in play as a possibility, Mike. That's what
I guess the evidence against it is that Zach Wilson went to BYU, and you don't think of Mormons as dabbling in the occult and other than their own kind of interesting theology, but it's I wouldn't see them as they're kind of mild mannered, I would say, in general. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers, I think, would perhaps have sought some sort of alternative medicine, alternative kind of mind practice. So maybe he could have gone to see some sort of voodoo type of priest or something like that, and perhaps got the wrong ended up getting the wrong spell, something like that, or he tried to do it himself because he read a Wikipedia article and thought he could do it. I don't know. We had talked also about, do you think Wilson is going to get actual surgery, or is he going to see some sort of quack that will immunize him from future injuries?
I mean, probably both of those, I would assume. I think the team will make him have a surgery of some kind. He is definitely going to some non-traditional.
He's not going to go to like some sort of healer that kind of puts his hands close to the body, doesn't touch it, and
right. That will, I'm sure that will also
sends healing energy from his chakras to Aaron's.
For sure. That is for sure happening. Probably right now, as we're speaking right now. It's probably happening.
You might be taking ayahuasca in the dark,
yes,
somewhere. Well, now he could do that. He can go on a darkness retreat for months now, and really,
maybe even a year if he wanted to.
Really meditate and focus, and maybe come back next year in a Shaolin style type of martial arts person or something.
Well, hopefully plays quarterback like that too. That'll be exciting to see.
It seemed like Mahomes had a lot of those moments where last week, and it still wasn't enough because he had no receivers. So maybe a question also is, do you think the Chiefs have a good enough receiving core this year? If we're going to assume Kelsey comes back, but maybe he's not. You could say, well, maybe he's only 90, he's getting older. So even best case scenario might be he's only 90% of what he was last year. And then maybe the year after he'll be 90% of what he was the year before. And it's kind of going to go, it's going to go downhill from here. He's like, how old is Kelsey? Like, is he 34?
I think that sounds right.
He is 33. He'll be 34 in about 3.5 weeks. So he's
basically 34.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say the main thing that we've seen from the first game, at least anyways, the offensive line looks pretty good. Like, Mahomes had a lot of time, and it does seem like the connection with quarterback and receivers takes a little longer to develop. So, like, as the season goes on, I think they'll be more in sync. And hopefully they will. I mean, it doesn't seem like it'd be possible to have that many drops in another game, but I mean, if you can find somebody out there, I think they'll probably try to bring someone else in. But I mean, I think the receivers are pretty good in general, and I think some of that connection will come along as the season goes on.
I think
if the offensive line stays intact and plays like they did in that first game.
Well, I'll talk about the offensive line one second, but I think a big reason also is that Tony missed basically the entire training camp because he got hurt like on the first day, and then
first practice, and
then he's back like You know, he's
for the
for
last
the first
preseason
game,
game,
and
and then
he's
he played just a bit, right? Well, did he play
you know,
some?
he didn't play in the preseason at
Oh no,
all.
he didn't play at all. Yeah,
He was like ruled kind of okay like Monday or Tuesday before the game, I think.
okay.
Same thing with Snead. Snead didn't have a great game either, although McDuffie played really well, and I thought the secondary did pretty well. Like, other than a couple of drives where the Lions kind of marched down the field, the Chiefs defense looked very good without Jones. We'll talk about the Jones contract in a minute, but the offensive line, one of the big kind of controversies this game was that Juwan Taylor, the right tackle, was, at least according to the analysts at the Chiefs game, was lined up illegally and then also moving too fast.
Getting a bit of a head start, perhaps.
Do you think the Chiefs are going to work on that, or is Taylor going to get penalized for? Because I think people are going to notice it. But last year, I think we both were talking about how it seemed like a lot of teams, the tackles were moving
maybe a little earlier
or the snap.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, it was pointed out, I think, by analysts, but I mean, it was flagged, I think, on the very last possession that the Chiefs.
Yeah, the fourth down on the.
So it was the fourth and 20 became a 4th and 25.
Yeah,
and because of that, but if he was doing it the entire game, I don't know why they would have chosen to flag it.
Well, it seemed like he went a little earlier, even that time,
even earlier than what they were allowing before. But
yeah.
I think, again, though, I think the officials are supposed to, like, at least if he's lined up improperly, they can tell him that, so that he would.
I didn't think he was lined up really unusually. Like when they said his head wasn't at the waist of the other guy, it looked like it was to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't see that. That because Mike Pereira said, but I looked like you weren't looking at it down the line, so like you couldn't
right
angle anyway. But I didn't think that looked that unusual. Like I didn't think he was too far back, but I thought that he was jumping back earlier than you would. If you're a fan of the other team, earlier you would say that that's a little too early. But I remember him doing that for the Jaguars too, and. But Taylor handled Aiden Hutchinson pretty well. But then Hutchinson, when he moved inside, went over Trey Smith more easily. But there are no sacks that the Lions had, so that's good. I think how many sacks did Orlando Brown allow for the Bengals? Do you know?
I just know what Burrow did as a quarterback for that game. I didn't see how many sacks there were in that one.
I'm looking it up right now. Yes, we talked about how Burrow gets sacked about twice as much.
Yeah,
as Mahomes, and that probably can explain why Burrow's traditionally his completion percentage is higher than Mahomes, because Mahomes throws it away.
He'll get rid of it instead of taking the sack. Burrow was sacked twice.
Just sacked twice. Okay. Well, he was sacked an infinite more amount of times more than Mahomes this past game.
That is accurate.
Although you could say probably the pressure was much harder on Mahomes than it was.
So it looks like Myles Garrett had 1 sack. He was an outside rusher. And the other defensive end was, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
If Brown was the
there were
defending
10,
the defending tackle on that play.
Yeah. So there were 10 quarterback hits on Burrow. And there were I'm stuck on what's ESPN.com .sg. How did I get SG here?
I don't know. Don't know that one.
What do you think SG.sg is?
I don't know.
It's got all it's
Detroit had 7 hits on Mahomes.
So when I clicked on football, it became soccer. We'll talk about the Royals. They had 10-9 in the bottom of the 8th inning. We'll talk about them in a second. I'm gonna see how much Mahomes was pressured. in that game. So it seemed like he was pressured a lot, but he was able to maneuver very well. There are only 4 quarterback hits on Mahomes, and you'd think, wait, no, it was 7 quarterback hits on Mahomes. 7 on Mahomes. So Hutchinson got 3 of them. Yeah. And so like, but Mahomes was able to maneuver and things like that. He still didn't have a great game for his own sake. He had only a 77.5 passer rating, but he actually had a 70.5 QBR, which is actually pretty high because he ran the ball well, in his interception that was counted, probably not counted against him in the QBR stats. The drops, I think, partly were, but like, you know, he had the interception return for a touchdown, but that was completely not his fault. And
right.
So I think the stats didn't quite tell this story there. But speaking of the Chiefs game, what do you think of the Chris Jones holdout ending?
I think it's good for the Chiefs. It's kind of unfortunate probably for Jones that he didn't actually get an extension though. So it seems as though they just added some incentives to his current 1-year deal to get him back as fast as possible, which means we may be doing a lot of this all over again next year.
I've read that the Chiefs also do have a franchise tag available next year, so they could just franchise him, and probably he'll get an increased salary slightly next year than he has now. So like, because a lot of the big defensive tackles were signing $25+ million deals, and I think it's the average of the top 5.
Yeah, but he definitely won't get that, you know, number 1, number 2, number 3 is going to be just an average of, right?
Yeah, so like it's Aaron Donald and then like a bunch of people making around 25 million, I think. So
yeah,
that would be, you know, probably 27 million or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
And he's making about 20 million this year with a few more million of incentives that he's gotten. So, and some of those incentives seem like they're a little far-fetched. I think he gets $2 million if he's defensive player of the year, and he's probably not going to be, you know, no matter how good he is, he's probably not going to be defensive player of the year. Although he was, I think, top 3 last year. You could argue maybe he was the best.
He said in the offseason that he was going to win defensive player of the year this year.
Well, if he comes back and just,
then he also held out. So then
he's only held out 1 game. So maybe in some ways you could say, well, if he gets the big sack numbers and things like that, it's good. It might actually help him, saying, well, he didn't even play the first game. He played these last games though and did very well.
Yeah.
So
maybe the bigger question for the immediacy, at least anyway, is do you think he'll be on the field Sunday?
Yeah, I do. It's one of those things where I think having the 10-day period between Thursday night and Sunday afternoon was beneficial for the Chiefs. Is it on Sunday or is it Monday that he's
Monday's when they announced it, but I'm sure they knew.
So if he's there now,
must have known already.
If he's there now, he can have a full week of practice.
Well, he was at the game.
Yeah, he was at the game. We saw him sitting next to his agents, one of whom I thought looked suspiciously a lot like George Costanza, but with the hairpiece that George wore in that episode. When he and John, I can't remember John Lovitz's character's name, but when John Lovitz got that hairpiece because he pretended he had cancer, and then George went to get one as well, and George really liked it, but Jerry thought it was hilarious, and Elaine hated it and threw it out the I don't like this thing, and threw it out the window. But I thought he looked a lot like Costanza with a wig. His face anyway. He's probably a little less stocky maybe than Jason Alexander.
Yeah.
But very similar look to me. But he was one of the, I think there's 2 brothers that are the agents of, and they sat on either side.
Right.
Chris Jones.
Yeah, so it is unfortunate though that Jones didn't actually get the extension that he wanted. So I wonder if that's something that his agents thought he could get and then they weren't able to deliver for him, or if they just decided this season was more important than sitting out.
Yeah, I think the incentives at least make up for what he's going to have lost. and it's
But does
but
nothing compared to what he just would have just like come to camp at the beginning.
well, it's like a million or two more maybe he can get.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But like it wasn't a whole lot. And it's, I guess, I think Jones also is thinking, well, I need to play a lot this year if I want to get a big contract from somebody.
Yeah.
I can't hold out much longer. Also, maybe he decided he wanted to come back because the Chiefs defense was looking pretty good. And he thought, well, they didn't look as bad without me as I thought they might.
If they'd gotten blown out, do you think he would have gotten the extension, the extra
he might have, or at least he would have gotten a lot more money on this 1 year deal.
Yeah.
Although as the cap, I guess, is an issue. The Chiefs really didn't have any cap space.
Right.
But
Let's maybe before we jump into our recap of our betting competition from this week, I was going to ask you about the Denver Raiders game, Mike. After all of the talking and maybe concern about the for Chiefs fans being maybe a little bit worried about Denver improving a lot this year, what did you think of their game?
Yeah, they lost
a home loss to the Raiders
at home. It was not a pretty game. It was a defensive struggle or offensive kind of thing of little beauty. But again, it's one game. Although Denver did lose by 1 point, or very close game to Seattle to open the year last year, and that ended up boding very poorly for them. So I don't know. I think it means that Denver is not where they want to be for sure, and it's one of those things where maybe the Raiders aren't as bad as you might think they are. Since they got Garoppolo, who is familiar with Josh McDaniels' New England style offense, and
he's maybe not a flashy quarterback, but he's definitely competent.
Yeah, and maybe that's all that Russell Wilson is now, is just a kind of average NFL starter.
But after complaining about the Broncos offense, firing Nathaniel Hackett, bringing in an offensive coach, and then scoring the exact point per game average of last year in the first game, what about that?
Yeah, so it's a little bit confusing.
It's just week one.
Yeah, but Wilson, like, if you look at the stats, it's kind of interesting. Wilson he was 27 for 34, very good completion percentage, about 80%, and he had 108 passer rating, 74.7 QBR, which is out of 100, and that's really good. So Mahomes, I think last year was in the 70s somewhere, and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. They ran for 4.3 yards a carry, but they didn't score any points, and that's one of those. I don't know. The Raiders, they didn't have any turnovers. Did they?
Not that I remember, at least anyway.
And so you wonder how they scored so few. Same thing for the Raiders. Like Garoppolo was 20 for 26, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 1 interception, but he had 107.9 quarterback rating. Wilson's average per attempt was only 5.2 yards, which is or yards per completion, I guess, is it 5.2 yards, but not very good. Garoppolo was better. But the rushing for the Raiders, Jacobs had 19 carries for only 48 yards.
Yeah, 2.5 yards a carry. That's not good.
Yeah, the team was 2.1 yards a carry. So maybe you can chalk it up to good defense, but still I don't know, you'd think that Denver would be able to score more points on the Raiders at home. So yeah, maybe Denver is a little better than they were last year. I think they didn't have some of the crazy incompetence like you could see in the first game of Denver season last year, like when they went for a 58-yard field goal on 4th and 1 towards the end of the game, rather than just trying to go for it, and then make at least get a more makeable field goal. So there's like a minute left or something like that. So like if they did that, they could. But they decided to kick a really long one and missed, and then they lost. And like that was the first week, and then like it kind of snowballed and got worse and worse under Nathaniel Hackett. Maybe this also brings us back to the Jets, because now the Jets have Nathaniel Hackett without Aaron Rodgers. We think of him as being a poor offensive coordinator, poor coach in general here at the Power Hour, at least from this side of the this side of the broadcast booth. I think the only reason he was seen as a somewhat competent offensive coordinator is because he had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, and probably Rodgers could make most offensive coordinators at least look decent. And so maybe, the Jets might be really in trouble, since they don't even have maybe a competent, because they basically just brought in Hackett because it would get Aaron Rodgers, and now Aaron Rodgers is gone, and now we're stuck with Hackett, just like Denver was stuck with Hackett after Aaron Rodgers didn't show up, and they had Russell Wilson. Okay, well, we got Russell Wilson, but now the Jets now have another Wilson as their, so it's there's some parallels, and it comes full circle. So it's Zach Wilson instead of Russell, but just you might think, well, maybe Zach will have a chance to fulfill the promise that he had as a very high draft pick now, and I don't know. Do you think that? So which team do you like the chances better now, because you saw Denver lose to a team that you thought would be bad?
Yeah,
that's one, but now they don't have a quarterback. Do you think do you think the Jets or both of these teams are defensive heavy teams, even though they have Sean Payton as an offensive minded coach in Denver, but it's been the defense that's been leading the charge the last several years, probably basically since Peyton Manning's last season. It's been a defensive team. Do you think that who wins more games this year, the Jets or the Broncos?
I think both of us. I think neither of us had them as playoff teams before.
I had the Jets as possible. Actually, I had the Jets and the Broncos as possible contenders for the playoffs.
But like they're either in or outside looking in, right? But they're right on the edge.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that you probably don't have the Jets as a playoff team now if you're redoing your scenario. I mean, I don't think that the Broncos lost anything though, so I think maybe the Broncos will end up with maybe a win or two more than the Jets, but I think they're both outside the playoffs still. That's my.
Well, like you could say, at least the Jets have a win in hand, and the Broncos, the Jets are a 1 win ahead.
Yeah, but what
they lost their quarterback, so they beat the Bills. They beat the Bills without Aaron Rodgers, and so you could say, well, maybe the Jets are still okay because they could win without their good quarterback, and even with Russell Wilson, the Broncos couldn't beat the Raiders. But like I'm just kind of arguing sort of the devil's advocate here, but I do think probably, but Denver, you could say, plays in a, I don't know. Both divisions are tough, so it's hard to say. But yeah, I could see them. I thought of them both as being kind of 9-8, 10-7 type teams.
Yeah,
this year. Now I think of them probably, I don't know, 7-10 teams.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too.
The Broncos have more of a chance to turn it around. I think the Jets, because Wilson didn't look very good.
Yeah,
but Josh Allen looked worse, and it's not looking good. Especially, I'd say the Jets are looking worse. And do you think the Jets or the Giants are going to win more games? I guess is another. We talked about who had the worst day, the Jets or the Giants. Do you think the Jets or the Giants are going to win? Which of those teams now is going to win more games?
Oh man, I think I kind of expected the Giants to, lapse a bit from last year's season. That first game's got to hit pretty hard. So I guess we'll know a lot more after how resilient they are in week 2. If they bounce back at all, if they come back and crush their next opponent, maybe be so worried about them. But I'm still not expecting a lot from either of them. Yeah, maybe 6 to 7 wins for each of them, probably.
Well, the Giants,
fortunately for them, not impressive.
They play the Cardinals.
So they'd better win that game, but if they
Arizona.
don't blow them out, if it's a close game that like lingers to the end, I don't think you probably have much expectation.
The
for
Jets go to Dallas, so that does not
probably not great.
That's
Well,
not good.
one little tidbit about the that Raiders Denver game that I just noticed that I thought was kind of interesting anyway. We're talking about how was the scoring so low despite the offensive numbers. If you omit the one play end of half possession, there were only 11 possessions in the entire game.
Oh,
So
so just methodical kind of slow moving
long
drives.
drives that sometimes ended in nothing. There's a missed field goal.
Yeah, I guess there weren't many incomplete passes.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of short runs, and that probably meant third down conversions a lot.
There were only 3 punts.
Yeah, a lot of third down conversions.
So,
That's
and no turnover on downs either. So, and there was 1 turnover. So that's just long drives that resulted in something or not much, right?
Yeah.
That's just kind of interesting. It's just a very low number of possessions for a game, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of poor performances, our betting performances at least my betting performances were really bad. How did you do on your 3 picks that you made for the show? And then we can also talk about our overall numbers. But yeah, do you want to start talking first?
Sure. Yeah, I did pretty well. I should have gotten all 3, Mike, but what we both talked about this one game already anyway. But for the first pick that I had was Philly -4 at New England, which Philly just held on enough, the 25-20 victory to cover the spread. So I got the 1 point victory there on my first pick. How did your first pick go?
Bad as the other ones went. I was 0-3, and I had, let's say, I'll start with my I had 2 over-unders. I'll start with my first over-under. It was over-under 41 points between the 49ers and the Steelers. I correctly thought that at least it wasn't going to be a low-scoring affair necessarily. And for one team, it wasn't. And the other team kind of so San Francisco scored 30, and the Pittsburgh would have had to do is score 2 touchdowns to make it 44 and push it over the 41, which was what I thought it would go over, and it didn't. And Pittsburgh, we had thought, well, Kenny Pickett had a perfect passer rating in the preseason. We think that, he only threw 2 interceptions like the last half of the season, and like he was on his way up. And you also thought, well, I thought also the 49ers defense was not as good without Nick Bosa, who did sign, but I don't think he played in the
I don't think he was there yet.
Yeah, he signed a couple of days before.
No, he did play.
Oh, he did.
He had 2 tackles in the game.
Okay, but he was
and hit the QB once.
Okay, but he didn't have like a sack or 2, like you think of Bosa's usually. So he was maybe 50, maybe kind of half acclimated at best. And so I thought, I thought the Steelers would be able to score at least a decent amount. So I was thinking it was going to be like I don't know, 28 to 24 kind of game, and that would have been comfortably over. I also thought maybe the Steelers went at home because it was the Steelers had TJ Watt back, and their offense, Najee Harris is healthy, and George Pickens is looking good. Deontay Johnson got hurt. He's doubtful for the next game. So I just thought it would be higher scoring, and it was only high scoring on one side, and that doesn't usually bode well for the over under unless it's really, really, really.
Were you watching the game though?
No, I didn't. I wasn't able to watch it.
Because for the over under, it got close at the end because Pittsburgh was driving, and they got to the San Francisco 25-yard line. For a
I think I
fourth
was
play.
following that. I
And
had the
then,
Ravens
yeah.
game on here. That was the CBS game. Like, so like the Ravens and Steelers were both playing, and the Browns were playing. It's like all the games were like at the same time, and I wish.
But
Yeah,
you just needed one touchdown, and they were at the 25-yard line, but
yeah,
with some time left too, because it was like the 2-minute warning, I think. Yeah, it was at the 2-minute warning when they got to the 25.
yeah. You think that
They
I
had an
thought,
opportunity.
yeah, I thought they might be able to get a meaningless touchdown to get the over, but
And that would have been enough
it would have been
to
enough.
win the bet.
But alas, it was not.
So now are you going to be anti-Pittsburgh because they failed you
Possibly.
next time?
But I don't want to be too. I don't want to get clouded. So I need to be, for my betting system to work. I need to have a clear, impartial mind.
Oh, mine's all based on spite and
That's why you did so well.
who I dislike the most.
You won. Okay, well, tell me about your other bet then. Your second bet.
The second bet, I guess the second bet that I got correct was the Jacksonville Indy game at Jacksonville -5 at Indianapolis. And I was pretty worried about that one. I did not think it was going well.
It looked like Jacksonville was going to lose and Indianapolis was going to win outright. So
yeah, and it took a late couple of scores, 2 fourth-quarter scores from Jacksonville to cover the spread there. Jacksonville ended up winning 31-21, which was enough to cover the 5-point spread.
Yeah, and it went over as well. And I think both of us were a little surprised, maybe, that Anthony Richardson had a pretty good statistical.
Well, and I think of the 3 high draft pick quarterbacks, Richardson I think had the best game.
Yeah, he did throw.
He was supposed to be the most project of the 3.
Yeah.
Did you find that interesting at all, or is that?
I thought so too. I thought that was interesting, but I
maybe Richardson is less of a project and maybe closer to ready than to be.
I guess you think maybe that the Colts roster might be a little better than, at least better than Houston. But I think people were thinking Carolina was going to be the best.
Yeah.
Simply because I think people thought Bryce Young was going to be good, and I'm one of those people that I don't think he's going to be good because he's too small, and I think that is a big detriment in the NFL. It's okay in college because the guys are smaller and you can run this more wide open system and stuff like that. But if you get hit and you get hurt, that's what Tua is on the small side for a quarterback, and he gets injured a lot, and people thought, feared for his, quality of life really last year.
In college and in the pros both, he's been injured.
He's been injured. So
hit a lot and injured a lot. Yeah.
And he's stockier than Young is. Young is like Kyler Murray, who's also been injured a lot. And maybe I think Young seems more studious and more maybe into football than Murray.
Maybe than Kyler Murray, yeah.
But if I had to be, I think I was thinking, well, I thought probably this year that this year I thought that Richardson might be the worst of the 3 quarterbacks this year, but I thought maybe
that was an expectation of just being more of a project, though.
Yeah, right? I thought maybe he had the most long-term upside.
Yeah.
I thought Stroud coming in would probably be the best of the 3. And Stroud had a pretty okay game. He didn't throw any interceptions, 242 yards, but not 28 of 44, 242, low. But they didn't score any points against Baltimore. So
yeah, it
was one of the few games that I got right kind of on most, I think in all 3 in our whole bet. So I picked the under. I picked the under. I picked Baltimore to cover the -10 and Baltimore money line. And I think that was one of the few games that I got
across the board.
Yeah, across the board that I got right. And
Cincinnati, Cleveland, it looks like you got right across the board.
Okay, yeah, that was another one where we thought was. I thought that maybe
Yeah,
Cleveland
Houston,
was surprising.
Baltimore was across the board. Yeah.
I didn't. I didn't think that Cleveland would be so terrible. I mean, Baltimore. I mean, the Bengals would be so terrible. But
Yeah,
my
you totally called that one. Yeah.
yeah, well, I
Those two
thought
are right next to each other in the
yeah,
list.
I was doing great in the
You get like
opening,
6 in a
early
row.
going, and then all the home teams that I thought would win in the 3 o'clock/4 o'clock window lost,
And beyond. This is a Sunday night
and beyond, and Sunday night and Monday night. Actually, I picked the Jets did win on Monday night, but I picked Buffalo to win, and Buffalo should Aaron Rodgers isn't even playing. Buffalo should have won easily, but oh man, it was a frustrating week. And my second miss was identical bet to my first for Tennessee at New Orleans. I thought both of those teams' offenses would be improved from the year before because of better quarterback play. Derek Carr now is going to be the New Orleans quarterback, and I thought, Tannehill's back, and we also have, a healthy, healthier offense for the Titans, and I just thought, well, DeAndre Hopkins is there now, and I think both teams are going to score at least 20 something points, and it was a 16-15 game, a defensive slugfest. And I thought, get into the dome, there's no weather to be a problem, but it was well under. It didn't look like it was going over. So,
with 16 of 34 for only 198 yards, no touchdowns, 3 picks. Does that sound like a good line for a QB?
No, it does not. Yeah. So neither. Carr had over 300 yards passing, but only 1 touchdown, and I think it was
not enough Taysom Hill. I'm pretty sure is the problem there.
So was it just 5 field goals then for the for the Titans? I think it was just 5 field goals.
Maybe, yeah. It looks like it. Yeah, nobody
Nick
scored.
Folk if I had Nick Folk on my fantasy team, that would have been a great day. But yeah, there was 1 touchdown total from both teams, 8 field goals. So had some of those field goals been touchdowns, it would have been better. But yeah, it just was not my day. Tannehill had a 28.8 passer rating, a 10.3 QBR, so he's 1/10 of the best quarterback you could have.
Yeah.
10, yeah, it's really bad.
If you had 10 quarterbacks in the game at once with that rating,
so
together they would be pretty good.
Maybe Tannehill is Russell Wilson now. He's just hit a cliff and he's down. I don't know. Maybe it's just week 1 too, so it's hard to say. How about your third and final bet?
My third pick was the Buffalo at Jets. Buffalo minus 2.5. All they had to do, when I saw they won the toss and the overtime, I was like, oh, great. We'll wrap this up quickly. They'll drive down, get the field goal. I'll win the bet. 3 for 3. And then they go nowhere. Punt. Return for a touchdown.
Tamarick Vanover-esque punt return, overtime winner. From remember that game almost 30 years ago when that was during the magical Chiefs 1995 season when I think it was Steve Bono at quarterback. It was the year after that, after Montana retired. Went 13-3. A lot of overtime and close victories sealed by I think James Hasty had an interception return in overtime against the Raiders when the Raiders were like at the 35-yard line of the Chiefs. And then there were 3.
Was that one of the? Was he the player that spiked the ball off of one of the Bills? The Bills coach's images.
That was
is that Hasty? No,
1993 again in the playoffs at Houston at the Oilers. Buddy Ryan was the coach.
Yeah, it was Buddy Ryan. Yeah.
It was Keith Cash who caught the touchdown, tight end, and he threw it at the face. But yeah, but Hasty was it was an interception return. And I think here was it William White? I can't remember the guy's name. There was another. There were like 3 defensive touchdown returns, like in overtime, like that won games for the Chiefs that year. So they were kind of living a kind of magical life. And then of course they lost the first round of the playoffs. That was, I think, the Lynn Elliott game. And so they were 13-3 in both 1995 and 1997. They were number 1 seed, and they lost the first playoff game. They lost to that 97 was when they had better quarterback play, but they had 2 quarterbacks. They couldn't decide between Rich Gannon and Elvis Grbac, and they picked Elvis Grbac for the playoffs. And then they lost 14-10 against against the Broncos. And then John Elway would go on to win his first Super Bowl that year and would win another. So the Chiefs had a better team than the Broncos did, but but they actually had a really good team, that 97 team. The 95 team was kind of lucky, but they still, I don't know. So that's one reason why I'm a little bit hesitant to think that teams like Dallas, or teams that score a lot of points with blocked field goals and interception returns and stuff like that, those are harder to come by consistently. And so if you're living off of those, your luck's going to turn. So, but my luck did not turn on my third game either, because I thought, well, hey, the Chicago Bears, they are going to beat the Aaron Rodgers-less Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love as the quarterback. Love has been less than impressive the times he's been on the field, and really, really just the Packers kind of just wanted to move on, and so we got Love, we might as well play him. And Love looked great. The Bears looked like the Bears, and it was an easy victory for easy victory for the Green Bay Packers. I think it's 38-20.
I think that's it. Yep.
And yeah, so the Bears were when I bet the Bears, they were 1-point favorites. They ended up going up to 1.5 or 2 some places, but they ended up losing by 18. So Justin Fields looked kind of like Justin Fields early. He ran well, but he couldn't throw. And the Bears defense was bad, and just like, it was a disaster. So I was 0-3 on my picks, my best bets. I was 0-3 on my best bets. You were 2-1 on your best bets, and that success or lack of success carried over in our overall standings. We're not going to go through every game, but
maybe we'll just give like the synopsis.
Give us the synopsis, Dr. Scaff. You ended up much better than I did.
Yeah, so we each bet $100 3 times on each game: spread, money line, over under. And so we have a spreadsheet now where we've picked out all of the all of the bets for each game. So we had $4,800 in bets. The totals for the first game were, for the first set of games, then, so week 1, I ended up plus $26.01, Mike.
Hey, that's not bad.
Well, that's a 0.5% return for, I guess.
Yeah, if you have 4,800
or whatever,
that's like leaving it in the bank. Maybe for a week, you might get that amount of interest.
Probably
if it's in like a high yield
for a year, maybe,
or a high yield mutual fund, maybe you'll get something like that in a week.
Yeah, maybe.
But
yeah, you on the other hand didn't fare.
I was doing all right. After even with the Chiefs loss, that really hard, that really kind of crippled us at the beginning.
Set the tone early.
Yeah, it's like the Chiefs should have won that game, and they should have won it going away, and they had it was like you couldn't predict that the way they lost that, I don't think.
Yeah.
Especially because the defense played well and Mahomes played well. And but I did very well in the first early afternoon slot of games. And I was
through that point, you were ahead of me at that time by like a quarter or something like that.
But then
the rest of it ended, and happened, and then you ended up down $1,862.73 was the total, Mike.
Yeah.
39% loss.
That
You're
was
starting in the hole for
starting in a hole.
cumulative stats, but week 2 will be a brand new.
I think my lesson is that week 1 is usually not good for me, and maybe in the future I won't bet some if I become a professional gambler, which after this week I it doesn't look like there's no evidence that I should be, and I would say, well, maybe I'll just stay away from week 1 because I did pretty well in those preseason games. I would have won several $100s in the preseason.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
I think I lost.
I think you only lost one bet in the preseason of the ones that we talked about.
We made, yeah. I went and we went blanket
because I think you made picks on the Chiefs game.
I made picks on the Chiefs game.
Spread,
I made
money line,
and I only missed
under,
one,
and you missed one total out of all of those 9.
Yeah, and then we did the all over unders, and I cleaned up on that too. And
yeah, those weren't perfect, but the blanket
I would have been plus
well,
like $1,200 probably on the over under, because I think I averaged about plus 400 each time, each week, I think, and then probably on the Chiefs I would have also gotten a decent amount of money. So maybe almost the amount of money that I lost this one week on the preseason. I so maybe I'm even technically, but I lost it really fast and it really went downhill quickly because I predicted home teams to win and do better, and then the one time I didn't predict the home team to win was when the Jets beat the Bills.
Right.
And so all of these home favorites or even home underdogs did not win outright.
Right.
And that's my money line bets were even worse than my other ones, I think. So
even between the two of us, our money line bets were the worst of the 3 types of bets.
And that's,
if you want to hear the numbers on the totals anyway. For spread, you were 6 of 16. Money line, you were 6 of 16. Also, over unders, you were 5 of 16.
Ooh, that's not good.
So, but you uncharacteristically went over on your.
I saw some really low totals.
Yeah,
and I thought that, well, these are low. The totals were low in the preseason, and I went a blanket over when I'm usually more of an under guy, and it did very well. So I kind of continued that, and it didn't work. So
I just thought it was amusing because I took usually what you had typically said about about unders, especially after we talked about the preseason, how everything was going well over, and now the over under numbers were inflated compared to the preseason. I picked mostly unders, and I ended up going 11 for 16 in the over unders using your strategy. Well, you abandoned your own strategy, Mike. Are you going to go back to your old strategy?
I need to go back to my old strategy. I went to my preseason strategy, and I thought that, well, these are because people. I was thinking people know now that under is a better bet, so that's why they're pushing them down. But everybody likes an over. You like scoring, and I think people naturally.
It's a lot more fun to take the overs.
People naturally want the over, and so I fell for it, I guess. Or you could just say, well, the teams played poorly, and like they should have done a lot better, and it's not my fault. Those teams sucked, and
that's definitely what I said about the Buffalo game. Like, they absolutely should have won that game. There's no reason for them to have lost that.
Yeah,
that's on them. That's not on me.
And there's no reason that Pittsburgh should have been so bad, and no reason that the home teams, Denver lost at home, Seattle lost at home, Chicago lost at home, the Chargers lost at home, the Giants got blown out at home, New England lost at home. All these teams lost on the money line for me, and I was through the early games Sunday. I was 6 for 8 on the money line, and then I went 0 for my last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0 for my last 7. So
that's pretty rough.
Yeah. And then I didn't do much better on the spread of the over.
And they were only one of them was an underdog that you picked.
Yeah.
That's what's the the weird thing too, right? Oh, I get second one. There were two.
Yeah, I thought New England might upset the Eagles.
Yeah,
that was close. I thought the Eagles maybe should have lost that game, but they didn't. And but yeah,
you did pick the Giants.
I did pick the Giants. I thought, well, it's at home and the Giants do well. I thought that Dallas might
Come out flat
again
or something,
lose week one. They lost week one last year to the Buccaneers pretty badly. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to really think about last week anymore. The betting. Should we move on to another loser? The Kansas City Royals.
The transition would have said is like when we were talking about not understanding how somebody could really lose, be like you'd also not be worried about a 9-run lead in a game, but apparently 9 runs isn't maybe enough to make it uninteresting. Is that what? Did you see the final score?
The Royals won one of their 2 games today, so they played a doubleheader because their Monday game was
one of the 2 games today. Also, one of the games the only game they won since our last discussion, Mike.
They are now 44-101. So yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yes.
But yeah, they were ahead 9-0 in the second game of the doubleheader. They lost the first game of the doubleheader, of course, 6-2, and then they were up 9-0 through 3 innings. Through 4 innings, they were up 9-0, and then they scored 9 runs in the first 3 innings, and then they allowed 9 runs in the 5th and 6th inning combined, 8 runs in the 6th, and then that was a tie game, and they somehow won 11-10. And
so yeah, Lyles goes into the bottom of the 5th inning with a 9-run lead and leaves the game in the 6th, and is taken off of a decision then even by the time Taylor Clark had blown his lead the rest of the way.
Yeah, and we have Fermin going out with an injury, but his replacement at catcher, Logan Porter. Had you heard of Logan Porter before?
Yeah, but only because I kind of pay attention to the Royals minor league system. But
he's 28 years old, so he's a little old to be making
another 28-year-old rookie catcher like Freddie Fermin.
Yeah. But yeah, he was 2 for 4 in his debut.
Drove in 2 runs in the first inning.
Yeah. So his batting average is 500. His on base percentage is 600 because he had a I don't know how his on base percentage became 600, but I guess he must have had some appearances in the game before.
I don't think so. This is his debut game.
Did he get on some other way?
I don't know. That's weird.
Because he's got 2 for 4. Maybe did he play a game?
He was hit by a pitch.
Oh, hit by a pitch. I didn't show up at the box score. Okay, hit by a pitch. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, 3 for 5 then in plate appearances he reached.
Yeah.
For some reason the hit by pitch now shows up on the other teams underneath the pitching stats, not underneath the offensive team's location anywhere. Yeah. That's something that's been like reorganized in recent times.
3 Royals were hit by pitches.
Yep.
In the last game. Does this mean you think in the game 3 of the series, which will be on Wednesday, the day before this will air, do you think there's a chance for a brawl because 3 Royals were hit? No White Sox. We know the history in Chicago of even people jumping out of the stands and was it the League family? Bill League and his son, who were like these shirtless, toothless kind of white kind of rednecky people that were drunk and they beat up. Was it Tom Gamboa? I think it was the
that sounds right.
This would have been this was like mid to late 90s. When was the
right around 2000 maybe? I'm gonna say 99, 2000, somewhere in there.
2002. A
little later still.
Yeah, I guess it was my first year in grad school. So just started at Yale. And Gamboa suffered permanent hearing loss in his right here in that game. So those guys. So they've had some issues, and because they're divisional opponents, there's some bad blood usually. Also, we have Pedro Grifol as the manager, with maybe maybe they're friendlier because he's the manager, but
yeah,
there's maybe no love lost between these teams, and both teams are having much worse seasons than they predicted. And so maybe they'll say, well, maybe we're gonna have a dust up in game 3. That's my I just, since when I saw those 3 hit by pitches, I thought maybe that's gonna happen. At least somebody's gonna get thrown out of the game. That's my prediction.
Well, it's pretty bold. I don't know that any of the Royals care enough to get into a fight, though. That's what I know. That's hard to tell.
Yeah. Sally would.
He's not a fighter, though. He's a joker.
Yeah. Who was a fighter? I don't know.
He seems to laugh a lot. I don't know.
Yeah. But
I don't know who would be a fighter on the team. So,
well, maybe one of the pitchers would throw at somebody.
Yeah, that I wouldn't doubt.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
Because the Royals would want revenge for getting hit 3 times. Because that's still a kind of unwritten baseball rule that if you get plunked a lot.
Yeah. I didn't see any of the hit by pitches though, so I don't know if they were,
maybe they were curveballs in the dirt or something,
or
or just iffy ones. But I don't know. 3's a lot.
3 is plenty.
The pitcher tomorrow. Oh, it says undecided.
Undecided.
Oh, it's Clevenger though against so he's sort of a hothead for the White Sox. He played for the then Indians Guardians for a while, and the Royals didn't like playing against him, I don't think. So I think that bodes well for my prediction.
Yeah. This is probably enough talking about the Royals, I would guess. No, what do you think?
I think so. Well, we're really scratching scrounging for, I guess scrounging is the better word, scrounging for the anything we can find to trying to get this thing to focus. My camera, there we go.
There it goes.
Those of you who are just listening wouldn't notice anything different, but if you're watching on YouTube, you'd notice me putting my hand in front of my camera for some strange reason. And all of you who have been on Zoom probably do something like this though. But we're scrounging for any sort of interesting tidbits for the Royals into the season when they're, basically slumping towards maybe 115 loss season. I think that's not out of the question.
Not at all. Yeah, this is just a disaster of a season.
At least 110. It's going to be at least 110, I think.
Yeah.
We have to go back and review our over/under totals for the season in baseball, since we're those two. So I think hopefully I can at least break even on those. But
yeah, I think there are kind of some like end of season things that we'll probably end up going through with the Royals, but like checking in on these week to week is getting more difficult for us. I'm still watching some of the games, but it's hard to sit through them because they're
unfortunately
so bad.
Fortunately for us, we have the Chiefs, but the Chiefs look bad in their opening game, but hopefully we'll do better. So that, I think we can segue into our predictions for week 2 of the NFL season.
Sure.
We'll do our 3 best bets. Of course, mine should have been maybe the worst bets. So I think if you're using Morning Trek Power Hour for betting advice, if you picked against me every time, you would have been up a lot of money this week. And maybe I'll have to Costanza and just do the opposite of whatever.
Yes.
I think I'm not quite there yet. I'm gonna wait for another week to be the Costanza. Like if I have a week as bad as this week, next week, I might start doing Costanza. But then, of course, when I start doing the Costanza, I'm sure it would backfire, and that would be the one time that things would look better. So I'm debating a course of stubbornness versus Costanza.
You're welcome to join me and to start picking against teams rather than pick what you think will happen, but pick against the teams that you think are bad.
Yeah, I'm hoping that will not be a good strategy for you in the long run. At least, I not that I want you to lose money, but I want to at least look like I'm coming close to catching you. So,
what happens if it's like week 9 and the spite picks are way up on the strategies that you've taken? Are you gonna join the spite side?
no, I think I think I would, since the spite is right now just barely over making money, I would just go the opposite of what I would think, and
Right.
then I'd be.
Spite should have been 3-0, but Buffalo Bills now may be on my spite side later because of that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Failure.
Are they on your best bets, the Bills?
They're not.
What? Okay, tell me then what your first of your 3 best bets.
The first pick
Your
is
locks,
going
your locks of the week
against something that I thought before the season started, but after week 1, Green Bay looked pretty decent in their game.
Mm-hmm.
In their week 2 matchups against Atlanta, Green Bay is -1.5 at Atlanta. I'm taking that as my first.
Did you think that the Green Bay Atlanta matchup would be a matchup of 2 undefeated teams in week 2?
Never would have thought that.
I thought maybe
if you told me to pick out the season 100 times, none of them would have had these two being 1-0.
I thought that Atlanta would win at home against the Panthers, I think. But I
think they on our win totals, I think they were one of our lowest ones, were they not?
Yeah, on the money line, I missed the spread. I thought that it would be I missed the spread. I got the money line, and I got the under. On that one. So
I had Atlanta with only 3 wins on the season, so they've only got 2 left. If my
I think I had them. Well, I had Carolina and Atlanta both only having like 5, and they split against each other. So I thought they'd split at home with each other. So I did not think. I think the Packers would maybe only win 5 too, or 4, and they've won.
You had them at 5. I had them at 4.
Okay,
but now I'm predicting they get their second win.
Well, I think it's looking good
after 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think,
and then maybe they only had 2 wins left the rest of the season. That's how to make my prediction correct anyway.
So the Packers won big 38-20 last week, and the Falcons won 24-10 over the Panthers. And so you're thinking, what is the spread?
1.5 points.
Who's
Green Bay's the favorite?
Oh, Green Bay's the favorite. You think, okay. And I think if you think Green Bay is going to win, you might as well go on the one. Like, it's hard to
thread field goal. That covers
hard to thread that needle and say, well, I think they'll win, but I like the 1.5. I successfully threaded the needle in the preseason, and it worked perfectly because of an ill-timed Chris Oladokun interception that led to a winning field goal for the Saints, but also kept the Chiefs within the spread. So, but anyway, I'm not feeling as confident in this week's picks, but I'm also making my first bet on 2 teams that were started out 1-0, and I think maybe we were not confident that both teams would both be 1-0 either. You thought maybe the Steelers, maybe the 49ers would. I thought maybe the 49ers might even lose to the Steelers. And I thought the Rams would play okay in Seattle, but I didn't expect them to win outright. But we have the Rams at home against the 49ers. And I think Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan usually have interesting games against each other. The games are usually close. And the Rams are at home, but they're 8-point underdogs. And I think that's a lot of points to be giving, like, for the 49ers to be 8-point favorites on the road against a team that looked pretty good in week 1 against Seattle, and a team that actually won the Super Bowl the season before last. And it seems like Stafford's healthy again. It seems like the Rams maybe have a good receiving core, some young guys that have stepped up. And so I think the Rams won 30-13 on the road. So it was maybe as impressive a road win as the 49ers had, a divisional road win even. And so I'm Tutu Atwell and Puka Nakua. Have you heard of either of those players before this week? Each of them had 119 receiving yards.
Exactly, 119 yards.
Yes. And actually the Rams had 0 passing touchdowns, even though they threw for 334 yards. It was 3 rushing touchdowns. One from Cam Akers had 22 carries for 29 yards. Have you seen anybody with that many carries and that few yards in a game?
You'd think that they would stop handing the ball off.
I guess then they went
after like maybe 15 carries of like whatever yards.
That was strange. But
yeah,
there were also no turnovers in that game. Weirdly. But yeah, so like how that's but anyway, I think the Rams can at least cover the 8 points. Even though I know the 49ers are good, but I think the Rams are pretty good too. So I thought maybe the Rams would have a bounce back season and maybe make the playoffs this year or get close to it. So far so good. How about your second bet?
Second pick is another I'm sticking with spreads. It seemed to work for me pretty well last week. I was pretty happy with the picks from last time. Second one's is a division rivalry game in the AFC East. I've got Miami -2 at New England. So this is as much of a pick against New England as it is for Miami's high-powered offense. Miami's defense doesn't seem to be that great, but New England's offense I don't think is that good. So I don't think they can keep up with them like the Chargers kept up with.
Well, so if Mac Jones struggles, it looks like it's going to be Bailey Zappi again as the backup, because we didn't talk about this weird story. We've been really talking about the New England quarterback saga a lot when they surprisingly cut Bailey Zappi and Malik Cunningham and they both ended up being on the practice squad for the Patriots, but they only had one quarterback. And then they brought in Matt Corral, who was released by the Panthers because Bryce Young is there. But Matt Corral apparently hasn't been seen. He kind of just vanished.
Yeah.
And so
no show.
And then Zappi became the backup by default.
So he was elevated from the practice squad.
Yeah, he elevated him from the practice squad
to be the backup quarterback. They didn't need him in the game. Mac Jones had pretty decent numbers.
He had a better game than I thought Mac Jones would.
Yeah.
But I still think Zappi is just as good. But
yeah,
that Matt Corral story was,
but not showing up. That seems really bizarre.
Yeah, because like you would think, well, he'd be happy to be on an active roster.
Yeah,
because he was released, and
so you wonder if they had some weird plan for him that maybe he found out about afterwards or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they have been in contact, I guess, with him, so he's not like completely missing.
Yeah,
he just left, and personal issues. I think he has had maybe some mental health issues and things like that in the past. So maybe that's what's going on, and it's hard to deal with sometimes. So maybe that's what's up with him. But hopefully he's doing okay. But yeah, but that was surprise. I think that was again another twist in this crazy New England quarterback saga, I guess I've been calling it. So, but you picked against New England here, and you picked the Dolphins to win. They're favored by 2?
-2, yes.
-2, and you might as well pick them to win. If you think they're going to win outright, you might as well pick -2 because it's not.
I'm surprised the line is that close. I think that's part of why I would make that pick.
I guess you think Belichick always has something interesting in store on the defensive side, and maybe Tua, and the idea that Tua, you think is any moment now, you think he's going to get rocked, and he might not come back for a while, and
yeah.
That's the iffy.
I don't know that you expect that to happen like during the New England game, at least anyway. But
New England's got a tough defense that might, you wonder. But I can see that bet too. I think the Dolphins have a really good offense. They might even have the best offense in football. Right now, they're better than the Chiefs' offense is. Maybe with Kelsey and the receivers catching up, because Mahomes, I think, is better too. But like we said, I think the Chiefs don't make it easy on Mahomes. I think the Shanahan school of quarterback of offenses makes it easier on the quarterback, because this has allowed Brock Purdy so much success early on, and you kind of wonder, well, maybe that's why Trey Lance might just not be any good, because he's didn't have success, but he only had a couple of games, and he's only had a few games played since high school. Really, it seems like he didn't play much in college except for 1 year, and then
something like 21 starts in college and in the pros combined, I believe.
Yeah, if that. Yeah,
It's something like that. Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up. So Trey Lance played for, so he had 17, 21 then, and 17 of those were in college. He only played one season, but they went 16-0 because it's the FCS, so there's the playoffs, which has like 5 games and
multiple rounds.
I think there are 32 teams that make the FCS playoffs, at least. I think it's 32. So you had the round of 32, 16, 8, 4, and then the final. So that's 5 games in those playoffs. And then he only played 1 game in 2020 because of COVID. And then I guess he's had 4 starts. Yeah, he's had 4 starts over 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Well, but
and that was, I think Mahomes had 20 starts last season. So that was one of the stats that came up, I think, a week or two ago.
That's right. Yeah.
On ESPN, we're talking about, made that comment, at least anyway, on Around the Horn, I think.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Mahomes, my second bet is on the Chiefs. I'm still going with the Chiefs, despite their ineptitude in week 1. Kelsey, we think, is back. Chris Jones will be back. And so
maybe playing. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you could think he might have a Bosa-esque effect on the game.
Yeah.
I think they're both, dynamic defenders, and it seems like both of them were keeping in shape even though they weren't at training camp. And so maybe they can step in after a few days practice. And so the Chiefs were favored by 2.5 at Jacksonville, which I liked a lot. Now that it's been bumped up to 3, and I still like the Chiefs -3 in Jacksonville. I think the Chiefs will be angry. I think also maybe there's a little bit of we might think, well, do you think Jacksonville might want revenge on the Chiefs for the playoffs? But maybe the Chiefs, who Mahomes was hurt in the playoffs against, might be looking to show something here too, and to show that they weren't as bad as they were week 1. I think Jacksonville is also kind of lucky to get the victory that they had in week 1. So even though it's in Jacksonville, I don't think of Jacksonville as having a big home field advantage. I guess the weather would be warmer or whatever, but I think everybody likes warm weather, especially this early in the season. It's not going to be a big difference. It's still summer, basically. So I like the Chiefs -3 over the Jaguars.
You think the Chiefs definitely don't want to start 0-2, and
no,
whatever they can to not be 0-2.
No. And I think Mahomes is going to have a big day, and I think probably the receiving core is going to have a big day. And when he was healthy against Jacksonville last year, he had a big, easy game against them in at home during the regular season, and he threw kind of a dumb interception at the end to make it a little closer. But then he also was wheeling and dealing before he got hurt against Jacksonville in the playoff game. So I think I think they're due for a big week. So that's why I like the Chiefs -3. How about your third and final best bet? Your third and final lock.
Yes, our top 3.
Your shoe in of the week.
Yes.
Remember, I think the Simpsons had when it was the episode where Homer was in betting on football and Lisa was giving him all the picks. The guys, like, they had like this Jimmy the Greek type of guy, and he had a giant lock that he brought out for the lock of the week. And then somebody else had a giant shoe that he brought out for the shoe in of the week. And I think maybe we should have
we need a prop, is what you're saying.
We need a prop, yeah. or we could have a Lee Corso-esque. We could put on a mascot helmet.
Yeah.
Or
either football helmet or a mascot head or something, right?
Yeah. I haven't watched College Game Day this year. Is Lee Corso, is he gone from College Day? He's getting really old. Lee Corso. I think he was maybe even gone last year.
I have no idea. I don't tend to watch those shows anyway.
Yeah, I did.
I watch a lot of the like analyst talking head shows kind of things, but not the game day stuff though, for some reason.
It says he is going to be on.
Yeah.
Somewhat, but he's. Did you know Lee Corso? Which kind of old like sort of famous American company that Lee Corso is like the president of?
I have no idea.
So he is the director of business development for Dixon Ticonderoga, the pencil maker, the famous company? Pencil maker, which is
wow.
They're well known for their yellow number 2 pencils. It's now, I guess, made in Florida as the headquarters. I guess originally it was in upstate New York, Fort Ticonderoga area, Vermont.
Yeah.
But it's one of the most, I think, famous number 2 pencils that's ever been developed, and most other pencils are kind of knockoffs of the Dixon Ticonderoga pencil. So he is a prominent pencil maker. And apparently 2005 there was a big factory in Missouri, in a city named after a European city, but pronounced much differently. Do you have a guess of which Missouri city named after a
Well, there are a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with Versailles.
Yes, it is Versailles. You could have also said, I also thought maybe you'd say Milan, because there's a Milan.
Yes.
I think it's pronounced Milan.
There's also in Lebanon.
Yeah, Lebanon's not that bad, because we kind of say Lebanon.
No, but it's not, they don't say the A at all. It's just
Lebanon. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a Potosi, and there's like Mexico and Missouri, but Nevada I always like. Yeah. Versailles, Missouri, after Versailles, and it is kind of in the middle of the state, kind of northern Ozarks, and its population is about 2,500 people. So it's remained steady over the past several years. It's not getting smaller like a lot of small towns. But it was, I guess the biggest business there was the Dixon Ticonderoga pencils that were made there. I remember Kansas City had its own kind of school supply. It was one of the headquarters of Stuart Hall. Remember, they made notebooks. They were kind of the rival to Mead. And that one building, the building that's like the Abdiana building now, that was once the Stuart Hall factory or office building, and it had a Stuart Hall sign on it, I think. Or was that Tension Envelopes? Maybe that was Tension Envelopes.
There's a Tension Envelopes building.
Is there still a Tension Envelopes building?
Well, the sign's still there, but I don't think.
Okay, so I think that was a Stuart Hall.
Maybe it is still being used as an envelope. Envelope factory.
I say envelope. I will sometimes say envelope, because I think either one's fine because it comes from the French. But
yeah,
we say the word envelope. So I'm consistent and I say envelope.
Yeah.
Rather than envelope. But if I'm in France, I would say envelope.
Yes.
But tension. And
when in Rome.
Did you know that former mayor of Kansas City, Richard Berkeley, is the owner of Tension Envelopes?
No, didn't know.
I was just looking that up. And Richard Berkeley, his name originally Berkowitz. So I wonder if he changed it well, maybe it sounds Berkeley's less Jewishy, maybe, but also maybe because of the son of some Sam.
Maybe
Berkowitz.
it doesn't sound like he's a serial killer.
Yeah, David Berkowitz. He was the city's first Jewish mayor, and he was mayor when we were kids for a long time.
Wow.
And Berkeley Riverfront Park is named after him, and
Right.
he was around for the expansion of Bartle Hall, the revitalization of downtown, earliest revitalizations of downtown, and also that the higher Regency walkway collapse. But
yeah,
he was, yeah. So that was Berkeley, but yeah, Berkowitz. I don't know when he changed his name though, because he was born in 1931 and he became mayor in, I guess, 1979. So he's mayor from 1979 to 1991. So basically, our first 12 years of life. So
he was my first mayor. I guess we moved to Kansas City in
19. I was born in 1978, but I lived in Riverside then, so he would not have been my mayor. I only moved to Kansas City. I moved when I was in 1983, so it was October of 83, so I was 4, not quite 5, and I moved to Kansas City. So I guess he was also my first mayor then.
Yeah, so I would have been in KC in like October, I think, of 1980.
Ooh, okay.
So not that Riverside's that far away from me.
Well,
Kansas City though.
This has been a real digression of
no.
Did you make our third pick yet?
No, I haven't made a third pick yet.
I haven't either. So
talking about mayors, though.
You're talking about before we were talking about envelopes, office supplies, Lee Corso, and Dixon Ticonderoga.
Now we've stepped our way back, and now
I want to look up Stuart Hall really quick and see if
that's true.
Did you know there are several people in Wikipedia named Stuart Hall? There's a race car driver, a British race car driver, a British boxer, the bantamweight champion of 2010, a cultural theorist, Jamaican-born British Marxist, sociologist, cultural theorist, political activist, Stuart Hall, founder of the New Left Review, and also Stuart Hall, an old white guy who is a famous kind of game show and sports presenter. Actually, he was also convicted of multiple sexual offenses against children in 2013, ending his media broadcasting career. So there's an interesting number of Stuart Halls, and it's all spelled Stuart.
Right.
There's also a Stuart Hall school, a couple places, and but Stuart Hall building, I guess it still does have the Stuart Hall sign. So maybe it's not the Abdiana building. That was maybe the Tension Envelopes building. But Stuart Hall building was constructed in 1910 as a manufacturing facility for Nabisco, the National Biscuit Company. And there still is an oven there, but it was used as a warehouse for Stuart Hall. It was also where the company's operations were located, and it was converted to residential lofts in 2004. So in the Crossroads kind of area.
It used to be just notebooks as far as you could see.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of spiral
I just spiraled on forever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big Chief. I think they also made Big Chief tablets, if you remember those.
Yeah.
I think Stuart Hall made them. I'm looking for the Big Chief tablet. Those were made in St. Joseph. I knew it had a local Kansas City connection. So it was made in originated in Quincy, Illinois, and then was made in St. Joseph, Missouri. It became the world's largest paper tablet producer in 1906 when he built it. And then Big Chief was 1947. And 1966, the Meade Corporation acquired Western Tablet. And then Meade would later sell the Big Chief line to Springfield Tablet in Springfield, Missouri. So and Springfield Tablet closed, and now Everett. Then it was Everett Pad and Paper of Everett, Washington, and now a Texas company still resumed the production of the Big Chief writing tablet, which we had when we were kids. I remember the Big Chief. I think probably it's become a little bit un-PC maybe to have a Big Chief tablet nowadays. But famously, did you ever read A Confederacy of Dunces?
Years and years ago, but
Ignatius J. Riley wrote all of his thoughts on Big Chief tablets, even though we think of Big Chief as the tablets for like little kids to write on. But yeah, all of his thoughts went on to, he exclusively, I think, used Big Chief tablets.
Nice.
So anyway, so let's go to our third pick.
My third pick. I'm
always some sort of diversion on this in this show to something weird. Where else are you going to hear about these Kansas City area office supply companies and things like and related tangents because of Lee Corso and his pencil business? You're not going to hear that on any other podcast. Not a sports podcast anyway.
Just here.
Okay, sorry, I stole your thunder there. No, now our third pick.
I'm sticking with my trend of road favorites. To the Monday night game, we got Cleveland -2 at Pittsburgh.
Ooh.
But again, also this is as much picking against Pittsburgh because I think that they're probably not going to have a winning season this year.
You're hoping
prediction beforehand. I'm kind of sticking with this sort of thing until I'm proven wrong.
So you're rooting for Deshaun Watson, basically. Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. Not at all.
You're not a Deshaun Watson truther?
No, not at all. I don't know why they signed him. I don't know why they spent the money on him. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
but they beat Cleveland. Cleveland beat Cincinnati handily. I think they can beat Pittsburgh also.
Although it's tough to go into Acrisure Stadium, come out at night and come out with a victory.
That's right.
Okay. Oops. You probably didn't notice this. Maybe you were listening to this online, but we had some technical difficulties just now, and I think it was because we mentioned Deshaun Watson's name a few too many times, and Zoom probably decided, well, this is too controversial here. We can't keep running this. So you still pick the Browns to win at Acrisure Stadium, formerly known as Heinz Field, as your third pick.
That is correct.
I am betting on another, I guess, a game at a less storied stadium, Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. Is it still called Raymond James?
I'm not sure.
It was Hula Hands for a while, I think, and then it became Raymond James.
Hula Hands.
Do they still have Hula Hands?
There's a few, I'm pretty sure, but it's a much diminished from its height, at least anyway.
Yeah, I remember. I think I've only been to Hula Hands like one time. I thought it was like a Kansas City based chain at one point, right?
I think so.
Oh, Hula Hands. Oh, never mind. Hula Hands Stadium was the old Tampa Stadium, and then they built Raymond James Stadium.
Oh, it is still rain. I've driven by it actually because I was in Tampa a couple times, right? Remember we did a couple shows from there.
Yes. Hula Hands was the old Buccaneers Stadium. Raymond James was
it's still called Raymond
built
James.
in 1998. Okay. So Hula Hands is still headquartered in Leawood. The first Hula Hands was the Country Club Plaza one. I don't know. Is the one in the Plaza still there, the Hula Hands?
I don't think so. I think there's just one location. I think it's in like Overland Park.
Okay, there are only 34 locations nationwide as of 2023, so they have not been doing so well. I think they filed for bankruptcy and things like that. But yeah, anyway, Raymond James. The next, my bet is at Raymond James Stadium. So I was thinking it had changed names, but it's always been Raymond James Stadium. I don't know. Is Raymond James for Tampa have the same kind of closeness and cachet that Heinz had for Pittsburgh?
You mean that Acrisure has for Pittsburgh?
Well, Raymond James apparently is headquartered in St. Petersburg, Florida. It's a multi-level independent investment bank financial services company. So it's yeah, I think it's something for rich guys. But it's I guess Acrisure, the insurance broker is not located in Pittsburgh. It's actually it's headquartered in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So not very close. I would say there's at least 2 NFL stadiums in between former Heinz Field. You have to go through Detroit and through Cleveland to get to Pittsburgh. But anyway, Raymond James Stadium is hosting the Bears Buccaneers. I am not picking a side on this bet, at least not for my locks of the week. I am simply picking the over. It's a similar over to my other overs from last week. It's over under 41.5 points. I'm picking the over again, maybe stupidly, but I think the Bears and the Bucks are both going to A, score points, and B, allow points. So the Bears defense, gave up 38 to Green Bay at home. Even though, again, I don't, Jordan Love's not a great, maybe he's going to become a great quarterback, but I don't think him as being much better maybe than Baker Mayfield. And I think that the Buccaneers defense was strong, especially a couple of years ago, but it's getting a little bit older. So I think they still have a decent defense, but I think in the nice weather in Florida, I think the Bears and the Bucks will each put up over 20 points. And if they each are over 20 points, that will be over 41.5. Technically it'll be 42. If they're both 21, that'd be 42 would be the lowest score possible, which would put me over. So I'm maybe dumbly going with over again, even though it seems like under was the way to go last week. I still I still like the over here, because I think people think maybe that Bears Bucks, that's a hard-nosed defensive matchup, and I'm not in both offenses aren't seen as very good, but I don't think both defenses are very good either. So and you got to think the Bears are looking to do better, and the Buccaneers came off a win in Minnesota, so they did all right. So maybe there's maybe there will be a offensive great offensive display put forth in Raymond,
or even a defensive display. Maybe it's a lot of turnovers directly into points that runs the score up. But I would say that of your picks last week, this is very similar to some of your last.
It was like it's one of those things where I haven't gone to my opposite Costanza yet. I'm going to at least wait 2 or 3 weeks for something like that. So I'm still going on what I think is probably best, because I don't think I am in that. I'm not as desperate as Costanza is or was.
You went overs at exactly 41 points twice last week. This week you're going even higher, 41.5 points.
When I bet it on 41 for both games, they actually went up to 41.5 after I made the bet. So I was on the side where the money was flowing in. That's why they raised so I'm I'm thinking I was really right, because Vegas wouldn't have changed it if they liked a lot of people going over, because they thought, well, it's an under. I think they did it because, well, I guess they wanted to get more people to go for the under to balance things out, because they weren't as confident in the under, because they think, oh, a lot of people, smart people, maybe are picking over. And as we know, the Steelers could only manage 7 points in Acrisure Stadium, the fabled gridiron house Acrisure, the frozen tundra of Acrisure Stadium. But in the the lush Bermuda grass of Raymond James, I think there will be a lot of points, and so I'm going with the over there.
And we will make our $4,800 picks also fake money, by the way, as a disclaimer, for this week also, right? So we're planning on picking all 3 styles of bets for all 16 games again this week.
Yes, and so we'll review those, not every game, but we'll review those on the air next week. And there's one piece of Chiefs news that I learned while we were on the broadcast, is that when we talk about Chris Jones's restructuring, he's making a little bit more money, and that actually put the Chiefs over the cap. So they ended up restructuring left guard Joe Tooney's contract, and they freed up $8.7 million. So that seems like the Chiefs maybe have about $8 million to play with. Now, do you think the Chiefs will bring somebody in with that extra cap money?
I would think they would kind of like keep looking to see who's out there, maybe, but I don't know if they're going to be actively like trying to find somebody like, like right now to spend that money on. But how much more of it was going towards Chris Jones? I didn't actually see Chris Jones's deal.
Chris Jones had his incentives. There's 2 types of incentives.
Yeah,
likely
some
to
count
be earned
against that cap, some
and
don't.
unlikely to be earned, and it's based on a certain formula. And the likely to be earned incentives go on this year's cap. The unlikely to be earned, if they're earned,
go on next year.
Go on next year's cap.
Okay.
So I would say there are probably maybe $2 or $3 million worth of likely.
Okay.
And the Chiefs were about they had maybe about $1 million to play with. So maybe they went over by $1 million or so. And then Joe Tooney, I think, freed up $8.7 million. So maybe if they're, that leaves maybe almost maybe $7 million ish or ish for room in the cap now. So when they freed up that cap, that money will go, a lot of the restructuring money will go to next year. And so that kind of makes Tooney somebody who's definitely going to be around next year, because he has a big contract, but he's been playing really well. And so that's, anyway, that was the Chiefs news that I wanted to let our legions of loyal fans, viewers, listeners know about. Do we have any other exciting, information, proprietary secrets, inside inside football, tidbits for anybody, or are we simply ready to call it a day?
I believe that exhausted my library of information for today.
I think he was in the Dixon, Ticonderoga, Versailles, Missouri, Stuart Hall, Richard Berkowitz.
My big chief notebook is now empty.
I didn't realize he was Richard Berkowitz, and I wonder if he did change, because he became mayor in 1979, and that was, I think, Son of Sam was 77, and I wonder if but he also might have changed it to Berkeley just to be into politics. But I would think, I don't know, I don't think that Berkowitz was really a bad name, because he wasn't like an actor or something like that. I think it must be politically based, because you wouldn't want to be associated with that guy, who of course had Newman's mail route on Seinfeld, before Newman had it. So Newman had that mailbag that was owned by Son of Sam that he used as collateral in the famous betting episode. Again, we're coming back to our betting, so it all circles back with Kramer in that Texan who were betting on the flights coming in on the departure and arrival board at JFK. I think it was one of the New Yorker reports. Maybe it was LaGuardia, but it was Mexico City. Here comes Mexico City, and Kramer, who had this gambling problem that popped up from time to time, needed he wanted to go double or nothing on Earl. Because he was losing, so he got Kramer. I mean, he got Newman to bring in his special Son of Sam mailbag, and so anyway, I think now I've truly exhausted my tangents for this week's episode of the Warning Track Power Hour. So I will begin our customary signing off right now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And please continue to support us here at the Warning Track Power Hour. I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and or subscribe to our YouTube channel or our many services that we deliver podcasts on. And we hope to see you again next week for another exciting episode. I don't think if anything could top this week's episode. I think this is one of our classics. It will certainly go on when we have our network on PTH Classic. It'll be aired during sweeps week and things like that, because this is really a gem, I think, of an episode, even with the technical difficulties caused by mentioning Deshaun Watson's name a few too many times. I think it's sort of like Beetlejuice. You don't want to say it or else something bad might happen to you. And we again, thank you for your patronage, and we will bid you good day.